Hey everyone, I'm James McCormack, and welcome back to the MSL Podcast. Today we have a special guest. She's the Director of Internships, MSL's Club Advisor, and the professor of some of my favorite classes here at UMass, like Sport Law. So please give a big welcome to Professor Emily Must.
Wow, what an introduction, James. I appreciate that.
Of course, yeah.
And so I think now you wanted me to share a bit about my bio, what got me here to UMass?
Yeah, basically just a little bit about yourself, your experience.
Excellent. I started here at UMass in 2016. I can't believe it's almost been 10 years of excellent students kind of coming through this system here. Prior to UMass, I was at Metro State University out in Denver, Colorado. And before that, as far as work in the sport industry goes, I worked for the Miami Marlins, then Florida Marlins, and the Miami Heat before then venturing off into event management, real estate, a few other things before realizing I really wanted to come back and be on a college campus. And so that's what brought me here.
And you brought up you've been to or you've been in multiple different majors, you didn't start off in sport management.
Correct. I was a kinesiology major. My first master's degree is in biomechanics. So I started off on the, science side of sport, if you will. And I really, really enjoyed that, quite honestly. It's just when I first got out of school, finding a job was really tough. It was the Great Recession then. But also the work that I found didn't really line up with my personality. So I was working in a biomechanics lab, coding numbers at night. So I was the only one in a lab already doing pretty siloed work. And so I just really didn't like all of the time just working with me and a screen and not getting face-to-face time, even with the clients really that we were seeing. I just kind of saw them as dots on a screen. And so I needed that shift, and I was still in school down at Barry. And so I shifted over pretty quickly enough anyway into the sport management MBA side of things, which was a much more natural fit for me.
Yeah. All right. So that's great to hear. Start off with a little icebreaker. I remember last year when I was starting as a sport career peer, on the TV right here, I was watching Game 6 of the '98 NBA Finals, Bulls versus Jazz, and you walked in in the middle of it, and you just casually brought up how, oh yeah, I ran into John Stockton once.
Yeah, I did.
Can you share that story?
Sure. It was randomly on a flight. Where was I going? I was going from Miami to Ohio to visit my family. And I got on the plane, and it was kind of one of those weird, smaller planes. It wasn't a very big one. And I looked and said, pretty sure that's John Stockton, but I wasn't 100%. And lo and behold, my seat was right behind his. And so I kind of eavesdropped for a second, figured out that my gut was right. And I just said hi, and I introduced myself, told him a little bit about myself. I was studying sport management. Ultimately, he was a very, very nice guy. And that was it. We kind of just chatted through the airline seats there for about an hour. And he was surprised that I recognized him. He thought I was too young to recognize him. I'm not. And so I think that was just one of those fun times that you meet somebody and they are just a regular human. It wasn't a time where I was asking for an autograph or anything like that. So I think I caught him off guard a little bit, and he was pleasantly surprised that someone of maybe my age either kind of knew who he was or recognized him. And so we just had a nice conversation, just basically chit chat about what we were going to Ohio for. He was going to visit family also.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So small world.
Yeah. Neighbors the whole time.
I guess, no, not neighbors the whole time, but I guess he also has some family now that has made their way to Ohio. So.
All right. So you brought it up earlier. You started kinesiology and then switched over to sport management. What was the transition basically? Because you mentioned oh yeah, this is more of what I want to do, but what was it kind of committing to a different field than what you started in?
It was a little scary at first because I think when you start off in college, I was trying to graduate a year early and do all of this kind of just rush. I think in your early 20s, you just feel the need to get to the next step and to start your life already. And so at first it felt like I'm a failure. Like I didn't hack it in the sciences. And it wasn't that I didn't hack it. It was, I just really didn't like it. I was miserable. Once I got into the classroom though, and transitioned into taking those business classes, I felt like it was so easy. I was swimming upstream in the stats classes and the science classes, and I was doing well enough. I was just having to really, really, really put the work in. Like nothing came kind of naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas once I was in those business classes, it was all just like, oh, I understand this intuitively almost. And I think it's because I grew up, my parents are entrepreneurs. I grew up in a family run business. So I always would joke with my dad during that time, like, I got my MBA in middle school working for you. There's nothing I really learned in the classroom that I didn't already see you and mom kind of in action doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's why some of it came pretty intuitively to me.
That's how I feel sometimes when I'm taking sport classes here. Cause like you have to take like a prereq and like, for example, I'm in economics of sport right now. I did micro and macroeconomics and I did good, but like, it never fully clicked. And then now I'm sitting in econ of sport and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense now.
Sometimes that's all you need for it to click.
It's weird how it clicks when it's like something that like you're more familiar with or like something that I guess interests you.
Exactly.
You also mentioned family-run business.
Yes.
Can you go more into detail about that?
Sure. The first family-run business that my parents had was a deli and gas station in upstate New York, the Cobblestone Corners. I was going into second grade when my dad bought that place, and I vividly remember he just came home from work one day. He worked at UPS in their corporate offices, and he said, I bought the deli down the street. He kind of quit corporate life in a big huff and a puff to go out on his own. And we ran that store basically my whole childhood from second grade until I was a junior in high school. And that's when my parents sold it and moved to Ohio to be closer to their families. And so I grew up, working before school, after school, ringing up people on the cash register, sweeping, mopping, making sandwiches, all of that kind of stuff. But it definitely gave me a really good foundation for what work is, how to work, and just kind of the simple parts of running a business that I honestly think get overlooked quite a lot. And if you're not built on that very simple foundation, you just kind of waste your time doing other things. So I'm thankful for that upbringing.
And you feel like it's helped a lot with like
100%. I feel like it helped me have a very realistic view of the world that I didn't see at the time. Now looking back and just understanding even as young as middle and early high school, like seeing people who came in really early in the morning, dressed in suits, commuting down into the city, or people coming by and scraping together change to buy a pack of cigarettes. I could see that as a kid and kind of knew like, I want to be like these people and not like these people, in that way of, people are creatures of habit. So the same people would come in every day and get the same thing. We're the convenience store, we're your stop when you leave and when you stop when you come home. And so like you are a part of people's lives in a very weird way. I could still probably remember quite a few orders from people because they would order the same thing every single day. And so I think that just gave me a good perspective on work, life, all of those things. I probably grew up a little faster than average or faster than some of my peers because of that. But that's okay. I think I really learned a lot about work more broadly. Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned like the remembering the orders too. Because that's something like at home, like my favorite pizzeria at home. Yeah. Sometimes I don't even have to like order anymore. No. They just see me like, oh yeah, you need.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, just we got you. And I'm like, yeah, sweet.
Exactly.
All right. So I believe you don't teach intro anymore, but
got a semester break. I don't know when that will be back on my docket. Could be as early as next fall.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. That's good to hear. Yes. Because you taught my intro class when I first got onto campus. And I remember one of the classes we were talking about like building stadiums and like funding stadiums. And you brought up how you worked with the Florida Marlins at the time.
Yes.
And when they were opening their brand new stadium, publicly funded in Miami.
Yes.
In the
Yes,
Miami.
right in the heart of Miami.
Yeah.
They moved from Broward County, which is a little further north, right into the heart of Miami-Dade.
So can you like go into detail about like how that experience was?
Sure. I actually wrote my entire master's thesis on that stadium. It was a very interesting experience because it really showed me up front that the sport industry is unique because it's also really intertwined with politics. The mayor at that time was also recalled due to this whole stadium debacle. And it was one of those moments where I did realize that you could have the best information and the best case as a consultant. And the decision might have already been preordained. And that's definitely what it was in this case. They had a variety of consultants and economic impact studies, everyone saying where they should build this new facility. And the one thing that every study agreed on was they should not build it where the old Orange Bowl was, which is where they built it. And so, the mayor got ousted because of that, huge cost overruns. The team ownership since has changed, which is a very good thing. That previous team owners were they weren't really good corporate citizens. I can say that as far as, wanting to do well by the community. They really cared only about doing well for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that showed. That was the only stadium never to get a honeymoon effect. So the honeymoon effect happens when you open up a new facility. The next 2, 3, hopefully 5 years, you have increased ticket revenue. The Marlins did not. And so they went from being last in the league to continuing being last in the league, even with a new stadium being opened. Yeah, it was just kind of poorly done. And even now you go through that part of town and it was supposed to come with all of this other redevelopment, which is very common. This is not just a Miami issue, that people want a stadium. So they say, give us this, and then we'll provide all of this other ancillary development, or it will just automatically happen somehow. And the whole neighborhood will see an uptick. And you didn't see that there. What you see is this very futuristic looking building just sat down in Little Havana, which is a neighborhood. So it's not even really by the city aspect or by the bay or by South Beach. So it's just kind of in this weird area that made sense for University of Miami to play. But as far as kind of deserting the fan base up from Broward, hoping that just because this is in a Cuban neighborhood and they like baseball, that they will come, because that wasn't really the case. So I don't think they did enough research on the demographics of the area and what would really bring people out to games, and how to, make it a stadium that could also bring up the community. And so I'm glad they're under new ownership. Yeah. I think that now we're starting to see some differences. They've got some naming rights deals finally in place for that facility. And so hopefully they might start paying back some of the debt to the city and the county.
Yeah. Well, it's cool that you mentioned the honeymoon effect, because I remember you brought that up in class 2 years ago. So.
Good for you. Wow. Okay. Some sticks.
It's like as soon as you said, I'm like, oh yeah.
You might even talk about that in sport econ.
Yeah.
You got into stadium financing anyway.
Yeah. But no, it's cool to hear, because, it's a lot more of like the behind the scenes that like you don't usually hear when a new stadium's being built, especially when you just see it like on the normal news,
Yes. And that stadium got a lot of coverage, a lot of negative coverage on the news. And since then, we have actually started seeing a shift in more private funding of these facilities, but that's also because we've just seen a shift in sport, whether it's private equity funding. We have individual athletes now that are super wealthy, like beyond what they were in the 90s and early 2000s, where they can put up some of this money. And I do think they're better stewards and better decision makers because they know what fans and what athletes will want. And they bring a little bit of cachet with them too, that I think gets people more excited than just your average billionaire. So I think that's nice that we're seeing that shift. But it's also kind of a shame in a way, because if done well and correctly, these public-private partnerships could really be that spark or that catalyst to really transform an area. And when it's private developers, their goals are a little bit different than maybe a city council's goals would be to make the area livable and make it, affordable. Whereas a developer wants to just make money. And so sometimes what you see when it's private development is it looks great, it's beautiful, but it has pushed out all the original residents. The rent or, is super high, that it's not a place where an average person can live, work, and play, as I like to bill it. So, and sometimes in those deals, they will say, 10 or 20% has to be affordable housing. But I feel like when we do put more money in as a city or municipality, you get more say over what's done.
Yeah. And that's kind of similar to what happened with like the Athletics in Oakland.
Yes. And sometimes the teams just say, well, then fine, we will leave.
Yeah.
And the Marlins did the same thing. They threatened to move to Vegas. That was always the bargaining chip for every team. Well, we'll go to Vegas. Now we're going to have to find a new city because everybody has indeed gone to Vegas now. And so we'll need to have a new city to say that, we can sustain this team.
All right. So in addition, or kind of a follow-up to this, when you were working in the sport industry before coming here to UMass, what was kind of like your favorite memory or favorite moment, I should say?
What Super Bowl was that I worked and I was close to the field when Prince was performing? That has to be probably my best memory. Gosh, I don't even remember what Super Bowl it was. It was a long time ago, 17 years ago. But I was just working volunteer Super Bowl committee. It was in Florida. And so I got to see Prince's halftime show like from the ground. So I was I got lucky in like a really cool placement to see that. So I think that's probably a really good memory. I put on the Billy the Marlin costume more than once. I can still smell that smell. But it's always fun, being the mascot. It's like a gross job on one side, but it is so much fun to just put that costume on and act crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's fun. The kids laugh, like you just go nuts. And so those are some of the more generic kind of fun memories, intern level wise, being like, I don't know. There's no, Billy the Marlin today. I was like, well, it's you then. So that was always fun too, I have to say. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was tall enough to fit in the costume. So yeah, I got picked more than once.
That's cool. You were like ground level for a Super Bowl halftime.
Yes, that was definitely the coolest. Just on a volunteer.
Not just any halftime, like Prince.
That's why I think it was so cool to see that. Yeah.
I'd be bragging about that forever.
Yeah. Those are the things that sometimes you're like, okay, but it's kind of funny because it's like, oh, well, I wasn't getting paid for it. It was volunteer. Like so much of our work in this industry is like volunteer, very low paid, but super cool. So I think that, that was a good.
There's a trade-off.
There's a trade-off, and that was a fun one.
Yeah. So in addition to that, with all this experience you had in the sport industry, how does that kind of shape how you teach here at UMass?
I think I teach in a very applied way. I'm not big into the theories. I educate myself with the theories, don't get me wrong, but I educate myself a lot more by talking to people who are currently working in those roles to see what are the things you need to know to get your job done that relate to this particular discipline. And so and I teach a lot of different classes. And so that's the approach I take to all of them to say, what are the 3 or 4 things that the skills that they'll have leaving here, and maybe not just like the knowledge that they'll have. So for sport law, that's why I focus so much on just risk management in every aspect that we go through, how this type of law affects our industry, and then how you can manage potential issues that arise that way kind of ahead of time. With sports sales, it's why I partner with the Thunderbirds. So we pick up the phone and we make calls because that's what you do as a salesperson. So I think trying to get some real experience and even an intro, making you do a project. I don't know if I made your group do this, but you go to a UMass game, you have to do some fan surveys, you have to talk to people, you have to observe, you have to report back, those types of skills that I think sometimes go under the radar a little bit in favor of academic concepts sometimes, when I think if you put those skills at the forefront and you explain like, this is the skill you're learning by then going and using the library database or something else, that is really helpful. And I want students to know too, that like, that's valuable. Going to an event and observing it and taking notes. That's what event managers do to say like, how could this event be better? It could be something so simple as moving the trash cans. But the last event I was at, 5 different people asked me where the trash was. I wasn't working the event, but I had UMass stuff on, so I got asked a lot of questions. So immediately, I went up to the people working, and I said, you guys got to move these trash cans. It's because no one knows where the trash is this week. It's usually on this side of the gate. Now it's on this side, and people are confused. And so it's all of those little details, I think, that add up to what we do in our industry. So that's the generic approach I take to the classes. So anytime I'm asked to teach something new, the first thing I do is try to find people working in that side of the industry. I'll look at old syllabi too, but I like to ask people working in the industry first before I read a book, before I look at another professor's material, so that I'm not so heavily influenced by previous information. Because it's easy. I could say, well, let's just use a syllabus. There's nothing really wrong with it. But that's the way I can kind of just naturally update our curriculum and stay in touch with alums at the same time. So it's kind of one of the ways that I use it to just be a little bit more efficient too. And get guest speakers.
Guest speakers always help.
Yes, after I have a conversation with an alum and I've learned something, and then I usually say, hey, maybe I'll just bring you in to talk about this particular topic.
Or because I remember when I was in intro, we had to go to a UMass rugby game.
Oh, okay. It was just UMass rugby. We worked with them that year. Okay.
And so we had to go to the game, go up to fans that were there. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
it was a new experience for me too, and you get to see a sport I wouldn't go to a rugby game, but then I kind of had fun.
Yeah. And the beauty of that is, that entrepreneurial spirit, because in this industry, you can have an idea and just do it. And then it's a thing. Like you look at the basketball tournament, TBT or TST. Now they have the soccer tournament. That was just an idea that somebody had. And now it's going on maybe a decade. You look at pickleball. Somebody just decided to make a league. Now we have 10 leagues and now they're going to merge into one. But if you have an idea for an event, you can just go and do it. And so if we can get experience, our students kind of seeing that is what I want them to leave here knowing. Yeah, they might go work for an agency or a team or a league, but in the back of your head, if you know how to just make it happen and make an event happen, you could do whatever you want after this. Start whatever you want. And now we're seeing more and more of that because the access to distribution is open. I could just live stream something on YouTube and get my crowd up, but you couldn't do that before. 4 or 5 big cable companies decided what we saw. We don't have that anymore. So if you want to come up with a new event or even a new sport, you can fully do that now. And so I think the only way to give people that experience and that confidence is through assignments like that, where they're they're doing things, not just
writing about it.
Writing about it.
Well, obviously you got to write about it too, but
you do. But there's nothing that can replace the PVTO.
Yeah,
there's nothing I can do in the classroom that will replace that learning experience of what that group of, 40 people. I mean, it's a big group when it's all said and done are working on that event. I can't replace that. I can't do that in the classroom. In the hypothetical. Doesn't work the same. You have to go through the issues. You have to make the mistakes. You have to think on your feet to really learn those skills. And even that's a good example of, if you think of something, you can just do it. That's a high school basketball tournament that we've run for 15 years. It's profitable. I don't know if someone can live off of it, but it's a model that could easily be repeated.
Yeah.
So
and it has.
Exactly.
So you're also the director of internships here in the McCormack's School of Sport Management. I always see every week when you post the newsletter, all the internships that you have posted, all the reach out that you do to get the internships available to us. I was just kind of curious, what's the process of getting these opportunities to the students?
Oof. It's an interesting process. It's a little bit of a hodgepodge. And so I have to balance spoon feeding students with every opportunity out there versus teaching them how to find their own opportunities. So I don't want the newsletter to be 30 pages long, but there are certainly 30 pages of opportunities out there right now. And so what I put on the newsletter, first and foremost, are opportunities that are here on campus. Because where we're located, it's very difficult to get internships off of campus in sport. Maybe you could get to the Thunderbirds or the Railers during the school year to work, but otherwise it's UMass Athletics. And so I make sure I email everybody in UMass Athletics. They get emails from me 3 or 4 times a year that just says, hey, we're getting into a good time or a good season to start recruiting interns. Send me what you need. I post them to iConnect, put them in the newsletter. Other things come in through alums. And so that's another thing I'll post in the newsletters when we have alums who are now maybe on a different chapter in their life, starting consultancy businesses and things like that, where they have 20 or 30 years of experience in the industry and they're going to put it to use in kind of a very niche way and are looking for interns. They all kind of know to reach out here. And I always think that that's a good experience because I know alums are more likely to kind of take care of that person, open their network to them, especially in remote internships. And then the third way is just those bigger, really important, kind of sexy internships. I have a big calendar that reminds me of like, oh, the NBA usually posts in mid-October. So I just check the NBA website. If it's there, I put it in the newsletter so that we're not missing those really big ones. And then you can see in the newsletter, I link off to a couple of other good job boards. I've got an Excel sheet that is just ongoing list of companies in the sport industry. Because once you get outside of teams and leagues, it's difficult to know the names of these companies, but you're still working in sport. And so, a Delaware North or an Aramark or these places that do back-end concession or Daktronics, those are scoreboards, like starting to think about those companies too, I think is important. And so those are on my Excel sheet that is linked off in the newsletter. So it's a little bit of things incoming to me making sure my calendar and timelines are up to date for the big internships. And then some of it's just good word of mouth. I got a great email today from BSC. I got a great one from them earlier this week telling me how fabulous our students were when they were interviewing for inside sales roles. So then that person spoke with their HR person and said, hey, make sure UMass people know about this fellowship we're starting. And so I just got outreach from BSC about a fellowship that they're, 1-year fellowship they're going to start this summer with a way to refer people. So I do spend a lot of time reaching out to HR people to get a good relationship with them so that then I can do that second and more important piece of after you all apply for jobs. That's why I have that referral form link in the newsletter. That's the cherry on top right there. And so if they are open to referrals, then what I do is I package up all of our student resumes in a very easy to read manner with some highlights of our students and send those off to HR recruiters to make their job easy so that they don't have to look at anybody else besides our UMass applicants. But that has worked extremely well for these competitive roles where they're getting thousands of applications. But realistically, from their point of view, it's for a 3-month internship or 1-year fellowship. How much time and effort can they put into recruiting for those positions? So if I can say, hey, we had 10 applicants and here's all of their information. I have a little referral says like one sentence on why you're a good fit for the role that gets sent to the recruiters. And then I add in another sentence or two about that person. And that has been really, really helpful. Wow. Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. Because I see the referral link.
Yeah, fill out. If there's ever something that says fill out their referral form, it's
yeah.
because I know somebody or I think I can get to know somebody within that time frame. And sometimes it's just a cold email. I know who's doing the recruiting, or I can find out through various LinkedIn kind of stalking or looking at an organizational chart and saying that's probably the person recruiting. And I will introduce myself and just say, hi, you don't know me, but I'm a professor at UMass and James McCormack applied to this role and he's really awesome for these 3 reasons. And that's it. Bye. I'm happy to hop on a call. Only one time have I gotten a response that said, we don't accept referrals.
Really?
No. Only once. And that person just wrote that we don't accept referrals. And in my head, I'm thinking, no, you don't, but you can't unread my email. So you're going to curiosity will get you. That person will certainly get an interview. And so I'm okay with that too. So it's a little bit of, it's kind of how I spend my summers too, try to really use that time with outreach and chatting up with alums that I don't know, or just people in the industry and HR folks to see, if I can get a good handle on timelines, what people are looking for. And they find that helpful. So I'm going to keep doing it.
I was going to say, because like when I applied to Fox Sports last month, I went to you. I'm like, do you know anybody? And you
just Madison.
Yeah, I was going to say, you led me to the right person.
Yes. So. Good. That's the way it's supposed to work sometimes.
So, you're also the club advisor for MSL.
Yeah.
How can student clubs or organizations like MSL build stronger connections with the sport industry? Because obviously we already do a good job.
Yes, you all do an amazing job. And I would say just keep doing what you're doing. It takes a lot of time and effort because student clubs turn over. So it's like that work that so and so did, that was 3 years ago now, and it's like when you're trying to keep a constant connection with somebody, but the name is changing over, that's really difficult. So I think organizing yourselves, the binders that I talk about so much, or our shared drives, are really for that purpose, to keep those connections going. But I also think it does help. That's why sometimes I say, copy me on the email, not because I want to be your business or read the emails, but it sparks to that alum, like, oh, because I'm the person who stays, you all leave, but they'll recognize my name at least and say, oh, this is Emily and her students up there. I'll go ahead and reply. And so I think having very good organizational systems, making sure the guests have a great time when they're here, I think is important, because we want to be that, like, oh, I got to get back up to UMass. So students were great. And then maybe having a solid faculty advisor who's going to be there and support you to find new people, but also be there to follow up with people if you feel like you're not getting responses that you need, because they just don't recognize your particular name, but they would recognize, the club or the university.
Well, I find it funny that, like, you bring up making sure, like, we give the guests, like, make sure they have a good time here on campus. Like, I know we always, like, take them out to Blue Wall before a meeting.
And that's through a sponsorship that I got through UMass Dining, so that we could have those cards just to feed them. It's not necessarily the biggest thing, but in times of budget crunches and whatnot, I feel like if I could find a way to reduce costs and still have a great event, then I'm also teaching you all how to do that as well. And that's part of successful event management too. And so sponsorships are what we do in this industry, and you can sponsor anything. And so, UMass Dining is happy to have people from all over the place kind of come in and taste their food, and maybe even post about it. Who knows? And so I think that, that was an easy sell for Garrett, and, it's just meal swipes, but it certainly does make a difference. It's not coming out of the club budget, and it's not coming out of their pocket. They're already taking the time to come up here. So, I want to make sure they at least have a good meal in their system from us. Yeah.
All right. So I saw an article earlier that you wrote about golf, like younger people getting into golf, and like golf is becoming more accessible in general. And you also brought up the WISM and Westover connection, how we do the golf event every semester.
Yeah.
And even last semester when we started the McCormack Golf Fest, or I should say the seniors from last semester started the golf fest at Westover. So I wanted to know, like, can you expand, like, what's kind of driving this change where, like, it's becoming more accessible and the players are getting a little younger too?
Yes, I think COVID vastly accelerated that. That's when I really started working with Westover, was right after, like, we were just getting out of COVID. And they were not doing well before then. They were kind of year over year seeing fewer and fewer rounds. COVID, golf was a sport you could still go out and do and play. And so we started seeing this uptick. I also think at the same time, we saw Topgolf really become very popular, and apps becoming easy to make and free. And so these three things have made it easier for people to get together, to find other people to play with, to get their first experience at a place like a Topgolf, which is basically golf and bowling, kind of, to me. You know what I mean? It has like a bowling alley vibe. You're there to eat, drink, maybe swing the club a few times. And so I think that has started to break the, like, this is just for old white men type of thing, to now bringing it to that younger generation. And I think that's great. I also think we see the PGA getting a little bit more exciting, the LPGA, Live Golf, I know is controversial for a variety of reasons, but the miking up of the athletes, like making golf a little bit more fun. Even heck, Holy Moly was on TV, right? That Steph Curry show where it was like giant putt-putt, but very cool. I think we started to see a lot of these things happen at the same time, and just really start to make golf feel more approachable for people. Like, oh, and once I think you realize that no one's really good at golf, like it's one of this big secret that everybody stinks. And so people like don't want to play because they don't want to be the bad person or the person slowing everybody down. But then once you get out there, you realize, oh, like 95% of golfers were all trash. So it's more about just the experience, beating yourself. And so I think that these are the things that we start to see this shift with younger people playing. And I think municipal courses like Westover play a big part in keeping it accessible because they keep it affordable. Golf is an expensive sport. And so, that's why I really love our relationship with Westover, because it's a municipal course. We've helped them with some great student projects, membership studies, sponsorship prospectus. Right now we're working on an RFP for them that they have to complete. So we've gotten some really good kind of meaty student projects out of it. And they love to host us too. And so they don't mind if we go out there and hack around a couple of times a year. The Golf Fest I thought was a great event. It was a really fun way to end the semester. And knowing that one person on every single one of those teams had never golfed before was so inspiring. I thought that was great that students were able to put themselves out there and feel comfortable with their peers doing that. So that was the best part of that event for me, that and everyone wearing their polos. But I think that just seeing how close kind of that group of students, how close they are here, that they could go out and feel totally comfortable doing that. That was great. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did.
I got a little off track there, but I think those kind of reasons all put together, New Tech, Top Golf, PGA, LPGA, Live Golf, kind of bringing a little more pizzazz, not to mention all of the other athletes that are constantly talking about their golf game, from football players, basketball players,
they have what is it called? Like the match on TV?
Yeah, exactly. So
like football players, Charles Barkley.
Exactly. We're starting to get some more exciting matchups and things like that. So I think that's really why we're at this time seeing this kind of explosion. Golf.
And like it's become more popular with like my friends in general too.
Yeah.
Like back home on Long Island, I started golfing with my friends after COVID.
Yeah.
Which like most of us weren't really consistent or even golfed before. And always had one friend that he's been golfing his whole life, and then every time we play with him, this is the worst game of my life.
Exactly. See, everybody stinks. Like everybody.
This is always the worst game of your life.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm noticing a trend.
Yes, everybody stinks. So,
but no, that's cool to hear, because I didn't know how recent the Westover
it was right after COVID. It was pretty recent. Yeah.
Until I read the article. I'm like, I didn't realize this wasn't like a long time thing, really. It's only been a few years.
A few years, yeah. When I brought back the sports sales class. So this is my fourth year teaching it. No, third year teaching it. Yeah, that's it. So they were a part of our first year. Yep. Wow. So it was fun.
So as a sport management professor here at UMass, what is one of your proudest moments as a professor?
Ooh, that's tough to answer. Proudest moments. I have the good fortune of having these a lot, and that's because people check in with me. And so my proudest moments usually come about a year, 9 months after graduation time, when a young alum checks in just to tell me that they love their job, or they hate their job sometimes. But it's that moment where they're checking back in as an industry professional, and sometimes they need something, but most of the time it's just to say, hey, fill us in on something that they learned that they're using, those little pieces of just saying, hi, I thought about you today and here's why. I think those are those little moments that are you get really proud of that. Just saying like, wow, or you get that text out of nowhere from a previous student. I think those are the moments that make us most proud. I mean, there's like awards and stuff like that, but I really think it's those moments, or even better, if I get to see them in action, right? So if they're at a venue or at a facility and I get the chance to visit and kind of see them in their work, that's always really proud to see them just happy and doing what they want to do. Yeah.
Or I always notice too, like when we have alumni come back to campus, they're always like, oh, I got to see Professor Muss. Or like usually if I'm when Ari came to campus. I was going to talk to you, and then Ari was just there too. I'm
of course,
perfect.
yes, Ari.
Yeah. So final question. What advice do you have for students that aren't sure yet about like what area of sport management they want to go into for their professional career?
Oh, my advice is don't stress about it, right? Just find something, be curious, be entrepreneurial, try your best at it, and observe. So wherever you start, it's not where you're going to end. But go after it with gusto. Be excited about whatever the opportunity is that's right in front of you in this day and in this moment. Do your best at it. And also be observant, see what else other people are doing within the organization, because that's how you'll figure out what you want to do next. But if you don't do a good job at whatever that first thing is, no one's going to consider you for something else. And so I always tell people, be very just happy and content with what you have and be the best at it today. And those opportunities 5 and 10 years down the road, like they will come, but you have to really be engaged where you start. Be curious, be entrepreneurial, right? Learn as much as you can, try to be helpful. And those next opportunities just kind of materialize if you're observant and you start to see like, oh, I really like what that person does. So I'm done with my work over here today. I did a great job. Let me see if I can get 5 minutes of their time or 10 minutes of their time, or ask them if hey, I'm done with my work for today. Can I help you? Those are the things that get you noticed, but also get you exposure to finding that thing that you do. Like you had me an intro. I say it a million times. You have to sample, you have to try things. And in trying things, you're also going to try things you don't like, but that doesn't mean you don't try hard at them still. You do your term, your internship term, you do the best job you can. So then that person, even if you didn't like it, you'd say, hey, I'm not going to, do this internship again, but I might want to apply for something else. And most people are very helpful, especially to young people figuring it out, right? If you did a good job, you showed up on time, you were diligent in your work, why wouldn't I help you find your next role, even if it's not with us?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest piece of advice I have. Just like be where your feet are, and be putting all of your effort into that, and not kind of with one eye out the door already when you're someplace, because then you'll never really be putting in 100%. So that's my best advice.
I like that you mentioned intro, because, the whole point of the class, like every week was like a different sector of the sport industry.
And that class I could still do every week. I could do that class all year long, the different sectors of our industry and all of the different various like solution and service providers. It's kind of on, we use big tech. There's a whole bunch of different companies that you could work for that you probably wouldn't think about at first, because you just think teams and leagues and maybe agents. And you don't think the fact that like Citibank, they operate, they have the naming rights to Citi Field. They have in-house sponsorship, so there's somebody who's an alum who works for Citibank and she does their sponsorship, so, she's working for a company that's not in sport, but they spend money in sport. And so I think just really learning that there's a lot of different opportunities out there, not to overwhelm you, but almost to inspire you. That if you don't like something, there's a million other things out there you can try.
Or like sport law, Tokyo Marines. Like
I would have, if I would have known that existed when I was in my early 20s, like maybe I would have done that.
So I'm like, that doesn't sound sporty. And then it's like,
interesting.
They help with the Olympics, the World Cup.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God.
It's very interesting. Our whole business model I find fascinating. So exactly. There's a lot of opportunities out there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, James.
Of course. So you can catch this episode obviously on YouTube and Spotify. Be uploading clips to both YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok. So please, if you're looking for more, just go to the MSL Podcast Instagram or TikTok, the McCormack Student Leaders YouTube page. And so this was Professor Emily Must. I'm James McCormack. Thank you for watching.